Hello everybody, всем привет. Today I want to talk about refactoring this buy build dialog and also doing some animation of the missing castle sprites. So first let's just have a look at the current build. This is actually the build with the, once I have done the dialog refactoring, you can see there's no animations here on this castle. Maybe a better example would be if we can load we can get a sorceress with our random generation of castle types. That would be the, well, you can see, for example, if we build the nest, we're missing parts of this griffin, which should be animated. We're missing parts of these gargoyles. And I want to show with a sorceress here. There's no leg moving on the sprite. There's no smoke coming out of the chimney. And this yellow flag is like missing on the castle. And the farm is the knight. And basically there are these little flags that should be waving that are attached to the castle. So that's that animation for the forest castle. There's this this kind of yellow banner in the front that waves a little bit back and forth in the well, fake wind, I guess. We also have, if I build it, it'll take me a second of resetting each day, a few days to build the various structures we need to build to get the unicorns built. But you can see here we have like the tail of the unicorns kind of wagging back and forth with animation. So these are the little pieces of animation that I want to get built. And just want to show you that it's not working currently. So here you can see there's no tail on this poor unicorn. This poor unicorn has lost its tail. There's no smoke. The dwarves don't have any fire. And this poor sprite is missing her lower calf muscle. Looks painful. So these animation frames are basically frames 1 through 5. You see this is the full frame, and there's a little bit of room for the tail to flop around. This other missing transparent area is just for grass that's already in the background frame. There is this little red dot up here, which I think is some kind of placeholder marker thing. That also exists on the archery range in the sorceress, and it messes with the hitbox. So I had to manually adjust the hitbox to get the recruit dialog to show up correctly. Anyway, let's start with the dialog box. So these are examples of this buy build dialog box, and the buy build border is an ICN in the heroes AGG file, which is made up of several components of a box here. That's actually something else. But anyway, when I first used the buy build border, I was doing it for events like the fairy ring. And that's what I thought it was. So I created events.cpp to start handling these events, like entering the fairy ring, picking up a treasure chest, flagging a mine, picking up resources, things like that. Actually, picking up resources is actually in the mini menu in the lower right corner, but visiting the windmill and picking up resources, for example. So I created this buy build dialog box in events.cpp. Well, then I needed to use it for elements for actually buying buildings in the castle. Then I needed to use it for the new month when I did the new day. I also needed to use it for leveling up for, well, there's numerous other things where you use it for, like buying a spell book, for example, doing the tooltips on spells. All of these require this dialogue, and yet it had been laid into event cpp event.h. So a lot of my other structures were incorporating event cpp and event.h because that's where this was, but I needed to rip this out and basically refactor it and pull this out into its own function. And then event will call it, and then level up will call it, the hero screen will call it for displaying the experience level of the hero or other tooltips. Level up calls it for displaying that. The mage guild screen calls that for the tooltips for the spells. The spell book calls it when you're doing the tooltips for the spells as well. New Day calls it for this display. So anyway, I start out, I basically describe this to the AI, and I pull out just some chunks of the documentation, and basically I ripped this out of the events.md documentation that I had written on how this dialog box works with the buy build ICN. So there's a lot of cases of using the buy build info box, and I think it should be broken out to its own function and imported into events, level up, spellbook, castle screen, new day, new game screen, etc. So it has a look, comes up with some ideas, building this new dialog utils CPP, and then event system draw buy build border should have a thin wrapper calling it. The spellbook duplicate dies, everything includes dialog utils.h instead of routing through event system. Well, that sounds good, but when it gets down here, I said, this looks okay, but why can't we break dialog utils out from events and have events imported? As it stands, it seems like it's redundant. It's strange to have events being imported into dialog utils, right? Dialog utils should be imported into events. And I've made that statement because had two layers. The drawing code was duplicated. The root cause was that the drawing code lived on event system, etc. The fix is to make it a free function. Yeah, that's correct. But event.h does not include dialog utils. That would be circular. Each CPP needs this dialog utils h directly. That sounds right. But this one line wrapper, like basically I just saw this and I looked in here to this diff event h. Okay, it's not loading it. All right, well, I guess we're not going to be able to see that, but basically it was telling me that event should actually, let's see if dialog utils, if this is importing it. Has no dependencies on event.h or other. Okay, this is the updated version. Okay, never mind. So basically, I just called out the AI and said that it was doing it wrong. And it said, you're absolutely right. The dependencies backwards. Dialog utils is a low-level primitive. It just draws boxes. So it should sit below event.h in the hierarchy, not depend on it. So we're moving these constants out of event.h and into dialog utils h, and then have event h include dialog utils. So dialog utils becomes the foundation and is not dependent on event.h at all. So this is the new variant here, where dialog utils is there. And actually, I don't know that these should actually be depending on event.h. Hopefully that stale reference gets removed. And so it says, it gives me this nice description of what it's doing, but I said, okay, but do it. and make sure that the dialog utils includes a parameter for how many spacers, how big the box should be. Because like each of these is considered a spacer, these spaces between the golden, this golden filigree, however you pronounce that, on the around the edge here. This is a spacer that allows for the text box to be varying sizes. So okay, it goes through, does all this. Let's see, does it remove the event.h from some of these? Continue, go down here. It generates my new dialog utils, my new event, my new spellbook, level up, castle screen, nature. So a lot of these are updated. I was annoyed that it didn't do game CPP. And so I asked it to do that one. So it gave me the version of game CPP. We had some compiler errors where it was pulling in the wrong pointer, it looks like. And then I want to update all this documentation on this. And so it gives me a bunch of documentation for it. All right, well, that was cool. Probably one of my more boring commentaries on the video, but it's important to understand that when I first started this, I thought, oh, events are the thing that bring up these dialog boxes, and I didn't fully understand the architecture of the game or really have a good design for it. And so this is me just course correcting the AI from, because it was literally creating a buy build function for every situation where I needed to use it, and that's just silly. That's just not a good use of resources. So anyway, I also previously in a previous video, I made the new game screen and I wanted to fix that. So you can actually see, this is my, let's see, this is one build. I want to use a slightly older build to show you this. So if I do none, I get a game requires at least one opponent. Click to continue. So that was my, like this isn't using the event dialog box as well for new game screen. So now that I had this event dialog, well, I guess dialog utils is now the function. I wanted to make this actually display here correctly the way it was supposed to in the game. And so I made a few changes here, and let's see what happens now. See this, a game requires at least one opponent. So this is what the game actually does when you do that. So let's give ourselves some opponents. And anyway, so I want a new game screen CPP to use dialog utils to display the message. I just showed you that that's working in the latest build, and with after the results of this. And I also want to update the difficulty rating formula because what I had missed on my previous calculation was that if the this was the previous formula, but what was missing is if the map size is small, you get a 0% bonus. If it's medium, you get 10%, and large, you get 20% bonus. And then the map difficulty, you get a 0, 10, 20, or 30, depending on the difficulty rating. So for example, if I make all my opponents genius and on expert in claw, and king of the hill, we get 120%. If I go down to Jolly Roger, which is impossible but small, I get a 0% bonus for that, but I get a 30% bonus for impossible, and now that's 150%. I think there might be one, let's see, what's a tough map here? Well, Shangri-La is normal and large, so that should also be plus 30% because you get a plus 20% for large and plus 10% for normal. Maybe Knight's Quest is large and tough, so this is plus 20% for large and plus 20% for tough, so we're at 160. And technically, if we could get a large and impossible map, we could get to 170% as the difficulty rating. Knight's Quest is interesting because we have multiple heroes. They're not being spawned correctly. But they are being highlighted correctly. So there's some bugs I have to fix on that, of course. But anyway, I did fix this code, and it pretty much, well, it did it first almost correctly. It showed the dialog box, but then it didn't render anything in the background. It became black. And so I asked it to not do that. And I asked it to just have the background screen show up, and I wanted to just make sure that it showed up like a pop-up. It did, and then we added some documentation to the various MD files here, including the especially these map size adjustments and map difficulty adjustments. So we went through all of that. And then I got right to work on animating the castle sprites. And most of that was just highlighting that frames 001 through 005 are the actual sprites that we want to use for these animations. Like this, if you can, we zoom in a little bit, maybe you could see it. These are the flags animating. If I zoom in a little bit, maybe we can get another little bit of animation there. But so those flags are on the top of the castle, and I want them to animate. The offsets X and Y are provided in the spec. So this gives us the width and height of those values, and also an X offset and a Y offset. So that tells us where those flags should go. So we really have all the ingredients. This should be pretty straightforward. One thing that's interesting though is the Barbarian castle has one extra thing that's not a structure. It's very strange, but it is just this river. So we have this extra river that kind of flows and animates through the Barbarian castle. So that was just kind of a weird quirk that I discovered that, and we need to do that overlay regardless of any structures being built. So let's add all of those. So I put all this in, comes up with something. What happened was the base frame was not being animated. So first let's show you what that build looks like. Let's see what castle we get to start. We have a sorceress. So the base frames disappeared, but we have some smoke coming here from the dwarf cottage. We have this, I guess, banner flopping in the wind. The offsets are a little off. This offset looks off because I would expect it to be about here. This needs to be down here, and this is a disembodied leg of a sprite just wiggling there. That should be down here. And then this is the tavern animated window, and it's being stretched to the entire size of the tavern. So it's animating, but it killed the base frames. And, you know, if we click on the castle, we can still build stuff. And they don't show up. So the base frames are not being rendered. So that was our first bug. So let's just make it so the base frame remains and the animation happens on top of it. So we did that. And then I called out, okay, these animation frames are being stretched. You need to find the X and Y offset as well and get those, like, basically apply the offsets correctly. So let's just have a look at what that build was there. Here we've got the knight. So you can see we've got these flags here for the archery range, for the castle, these are all being stretched in kind of a funny way. We've kind of got something going here with the blacksmith, but also these sprites are being stretched incorrectly. So it's kind of working, but we got to fix it. So we go down a path here, and I decide to give it the basic structure offsets, and the animation offsets cause some changes. So it really started to go off the rails and place things in different directions. And what it was doing was it was like double offsetting the CSV values. I don't know if I saved this build, but let's see. No, I didn't save that build, but it was basically starting to like double offset different sprites and values. Like the Thieves Guild and Tavern were moving to different places further on the screen. So it was like they were being offset twice. And some of the other things that should have been on like the right side of the screen were not visible because they were offset to an off-screen location. So it agreed with me and made, claims it made some improvements. And I said, no, you really broke it. I'm going to upload the version that was close, but with the sprite stretching, and I want you to fix that version only. And what had happened is when Claude presents new files like this, it frequently overwrites the old ones because it's showing you some kind of local working directory, and so you lose values, or you lose previously working files. I hadn't saved the files at this point, so I was in a little bit of a pickle, and so I said, why don't you do this? Make this list of changes to the original uploaded files, which it did save. It did have like the original state that I uploaded. So it worked through, made all of these changes, and it still didn't have the right XY offsets. So I said, these are relative to the 0, point of each base frame. Or actually, no. I said that the offsets were actually relative to the main castle screen, the 0, of the main castle screen. So they come from the upper left corner of the castle screen, which is actually the same as the upper left corner of the entire screen. And the game was computing them as if they were from the 0, point, the origin of the upper left corner of each base frame, which isn't correct. So it made that change, and it started to misunderstand the headers. And so I gave it a little more of an explanation. And so I said, you need to decode all of that for each frame of animation and place it based on its offset X and offset Y relative to 0, of the castle screen, not the base frame. So then I think it finally understood me. And I then wanted to fix the hitbox of the unicorns. So I'll show you what this looks like now. This is actually the build after this with the hitbox fixed. But first, let's just look. So you can see the sprite's leg is now animated. The smoke is now coming out of the dwarves correctly. This yellow banner is working correctly. If we build the archery range, this guy's arm is wiggling as it's supposed to. We gotta wait a second while we build another structure. Build our mage guild. Build a Stonehenge. There is no animation for Stonehenge. The druids are very, very stoic, I guess. We build our fenced meadow. You see the tail is working just fine for that guy, the unicorn there. And our red tower, the flame is a light on the red tower. So that is pretty much working for the animation. So let's just look at a couple of other structures if we can get one. So we've got the knights. We've got the flags here now at the archery range. We've got the flags at the top of the castle, the tavern window, which I forgot to point out from the previous one. We've got the smoke coming out. The boiler on the stove here is working. The the bellows here of the forge. I guess that's a forge, right? Yeah. So if we have the armory, there's a little bit of glow here from the armory. There's a little bit of a flag that's waving here. If we our next structure we can build is the jousting arena, and there's several flags here that are waving. So that looks cool. And the cathedral, it's subtle, but there's a shine on these, on this cross and this cross and this cross, and maybe there's some on the armor too of the paladin that's out front. I'm not sure, but I think the main animation is this glitter of the gold at the top of the cathedral. So those are all working. Let's see if we can just get another. Okay, that's the same one we've seen. Let's see if we can get a barbarian or a warlock. So the river is flowing. That's cool. The light is working inside of the stick hut. The wolves are moving their heads. The adobe has this horse wagging its tail, and this guy's moving his arm a little bit. I guess he's like thumping the club on the ground or something. The troll bridge is not animated at all. I guess the animation is maybe the river flowing, you know, water flowing under the bridge. I guess that English expression, water flow, it's water under the bridge, we say when we're putting something behind us. And the torches of the Cyclops are burning, and the Cyclopses are blinking. So we're getting the animations, and there's actually these soldiers on the castle are also moving around. So there's a little bit of that, and then this horse in front, the tail is moving around a little bit. So there's just some really minor animations that we see. And let's see if we can get a warlock finally. Yep, we got one. So there's no animation of the warlock castle, but we do have these gargoyles animated slightly. And if we build the nest, we see the griffins are flapping their wings. The swamp has an animation of the hydra's heads. There is something on the maze, but I have trouble seeing it. But I think it's like a little shine on this Minotaur. There's something shining on the Minotaur. And I mean, we could actually just try and find it here quick. Have a look on the MTN. D3 is the Minotaur. So that's interesting. Actually, there is no animation that we can see. That's just a placeholder. So it's very strange. If it is, it's a single pixel. It's a single pixel that maybe changes color. So it's an extremely subtle. There's one pixel here that's animated. We still see this tavern lively window working. And anyway, let's build the dragons and just check the dragon flames that those work as well. So yeah, we have the fire, and then the dragon, I think, is opening its eyes or doing something there. So we animated all of the structures here, and I had to fix the hitbox as well on the this was the hitbox for the Sorceress unicorn structure, which if we pull this up, this this image, see there's actually this little red dot up here that makes this much larger. So you'd think the hitbox would just be here, but because this dot is here, you know, this image of the fenced meadow is 225 by 226, which is way bigger. That's this giant square here, and that is, so the hitbox covers the Stonehenge, it covers the Mage Guild and a good chunk of the castle. So I had to manually adjust that down. And we also had something very similar here with the archery range, where we have this very long, we have another, again, this red dot here all the way on the other side. And so this was covering the tavern, this was covering the cottage and a good chunk of the castle and a chunk of the Mage Guild. So I had to adjust those hitboxes manually. I don't know what that red dot is. Maybe it's an alignment thing, or there's a little tiny indicator on the sorceress's castle. I'm not sure, but anyway, I had to manually adjust it. It gave me a very easy suggestion. And then I also had an issue with the Barbarian background wasn't rendering first. So I had to make sure that this river structure was rendering behind the other structures. And anyway, it did. And I wanted to decide, all right, I wanted to move the this plains E0 structure into resources CPP and not load it in castle screen as well. So I went through, did that. It did something weird and didn't have resources in the castle buildings. And so I had to kick the AI a little bit and say, no, put it in resources CPP, because it was doing something funny. But once I did that, we ended up with this situation here. So this is flowing just fine. Again, we have this animation here, the animation here, and these little bits on the castle where there's no flags, but there's a bunch of barbarian savage guys, a bunch of brigands that are guarding the castle.